Welcome back to On Texas Football. I'm Jeff Howe, joined by Gerry Hamilton and CJ Vogel. Time for this week's edition of the Recruiting Breakdown. We'll talk about the coaching carousel, look ahead to the Texas Vanderbilt visitor list. But before we do any of that, Gerry, as always, anytime we bring you the Recruiting Breakdown here on the channel, it's brought to you by our good friend Mark Saunders.
Yeah, football, hoops, whatever, any recruiting, Mark Saunders is our guy. Thank you for sponsoring On Texas Football. When it comes to protecting all your stuff, wouldn't it be great to have one singular place that protects it all? I got some good news, as I always do on these shows. That's Texas All-State agent Mark Saunders, who serves the Austin and Round Rock area in the entire state of Texas. That means he's the only insurance agent you'll need. Everything from your home, car, and boat to your motorcycle, RV, and ATV. It's hunting season out there. Call Texas All-State agent Mark Saunders' office today, 512-218-8571. He's not just the all-everything Texas All-State agent. He's also a Texas alum. So, again, Austin and Round Rock area, entire state of Texas. Give Mark Saunders his office a call today, 512-218-8571.
Guys, the insanity that is the coaching carousel, it's I don't know that we've ever seen it like this in the middle of a season. LSU is the latest job to open. And, Gerry, of all the jobs that have come open thus far, Penn State, Florida, we can go on down the list, is this the one that could potentially benefit Texas the most?
Yeah, Texas and Texas A&M. Let's be real. I mean, both Texas and Texas A&M were going after a lot of the guys that were committed and are committed to LSU. I'm going to start with Richard Anderson. I know a lot of people ask about Lamar Brown because he's the most highly ranked guy. I'm going a different direction. Richard Anderson, who may be the best defensive lineman in the country in this class, especially after seeing him 2 weeks ago at Ed in the Car. He's a guy that Texas has still been recruiting. When I was down there, like I said, a couple of weeks ago and talking to the staff, they said Texas, Ole Miss, and FSU, which we'll get to FSU in a second. That won't matter anymore. And Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin won't be there. So Texas was going all in on Richard Anderson, 6'3", 345-ish, and not fat. Unbelievable prospect. But LSU's got a number of guys. You know, that's where Hayward Howard is junior's committed. That doesn't have any bearing in today's day and age of recruiting. But Richard Anderson's a guy Texas is in contact with, trying to get him on campus. Also on that LSU commit list, CJ, I mean, you know, Jalen Lott is receiver one as far as the guys they would like to flip, but Jabari Mack is a guy at Destrehan that you went to see in the spring.
Yeah, and Texas at the time was the only contender for Jabari Mack with LSU. Yep. And, you know, he ended up committing to LSU. That official visit in June did not take place. So, hey, if Texas is able to get back on the phone with Jabari Mack and set up a visit, it would be an official to the Texas Longhorns. Of course, that communication would have to be reopened. But, Gerry, a part of growing up in New Orleans, growing up in the heart of Louisiana, there's a pride about going and committing to LSU. And that right now is kind of where I kind of put that recruitment is. For Jabari Mack and his family, going to LSU was bigger than just a coach or a relationship. It was, hey, I'm part of Louisiana. I want to stay here, be a part of playing in front of my community and friends. So that's something Texas will have to overcome, along with a number of other factors there. But right now, that would be your second option behind Jalen Lott, and it's a heck of a second option if that's the case. Jabari Mack's a heck of a prospect.
Yeah, real speed. And same thing with Richard Anderson in terms of that. You know, a kid from Ed in the Car, that pride in playing for LSU, the team you grew up watching. And remember, one thing about these kids that are seniors in high school right now in the state of Louisiana, 6 years ago, LSU won a national championship. They were all about 11, 12, 13 years old, the age of influence in recruiting. They saw their home state school win a national championship when they were playing middle school football, and that's impactful. Now, there's two other guys that are committed to LSU that we want to mention. Havon Finney, because they're out-of-state guys, not from Louisiana. Havon Finney out of Chatsworth, California, corner, Sierra Canyon, plays on the same high school team as Richard Wesley. Obviously means nothing in recruiting. But a guy Texas offered, they're in contact with him. They're going to try to get him on campus, one of the top corners in the country. LSU has a really good recruiting class. And then there's Trenton Henderson, the edge out of Pensacola Pine Forest, who literally picked LSU over Texas and Florida. Well, Florida doesn't have a coach, and LSU doesn't have a coach. Texas has a coach. Even there's been rumors about that, but he's a coach at Texas right now. So Trent Henderson's recruitment, he's probably looking around saying, what the heck is going on? But Texas has remained in contact with him throughout this process. and we'll see if they can get him on campus. The sticking point for Texas and Trenton Henderson was one of the reasons, even though he really liked Texas, he made 2 summer visits to Texas. Even though he really liked Texas, the problem for Texas was there was a lot of youth at the edge positions at Texas. Well, if there's one thing that's played out this season, guys, Lance Jackson's a freshman. Zine is a redshirt freshman. Colin Simmons is a sophomore. Justice Terry's a freshman. I mean, it's not like that position's really opened up this season.
Right.
So the issue that Texas had closing out that recruitment was the same issue they have now.
CJ, I want to go back to you real quick. You've been to the state of Louisiana several times this year, and even in the coaching transitions Texas has had, you lose Bo Davis, you lose Terry Joseph, but you still got ties in the state of Louisiana. Obviously, Alan Clark is a Baton Rouge guy, but CJ, this Texas staff, period, has done a lot of work in the state of Louisiana. What was the vibe you got from in-state prospects down there in regards to Texas?
Yeah, a lot more interest, right? A lot more when you hear Texas, ears kind of perk up. And Jerry, you've been down there plenty, right? That normally wasn't the case when Texas was struggling, but after putting 25 guys into the NFL draft, back-to-back college football playoff appearances, they're seeing production, they're seeing development. They're saying, "Oh, Texas might just be the it school now this year. Maybe need to back it back up on the field a little bit more." But kids in Louisiana started to take notice. I've been down there several times this year, especially in the heart of New Orleans. They're starting to listen to Texas a little bit more. And I say this, Jerry, you mentioned that 27 class in New Orleans. It's really, really deep, especially at wide receiver. Miguel Whitley, Raekwon Williams, both at St. Augustine. Easton Royal right now, Brother Martin. He's a top 10 player in the country by a few services. All had been offered by Texas in the spring. All had interest to get down to Austin for a visit. 3 opportunities left on this Texas slate to get down there this year. They're starting to listen a little bit more, and they're, I'm assuming with this change at LSU, willing to make the trip to Austin just a little bit more as well. Easton Martin, one of the top prospects in the country. He is phenomenal, 10.4 speed, one of the fastest players in the entire state of Louisiana, which isn't easy to say. But all to go back to your point, Jeff, kids in Louisiana starting to listen to Texas and hear from Texas a little bit more than they had in the past.
And guys, this is a huge hire they're all huge, but this is really huge for LSU right now because those future kids, the one thing about Brian Kelly, and Brian Kelly's still a really good football coach. You don't win 300 games without being a good coach, right? But he was never a good fit at LSU. And that, I think, hurt LSU because it's not even the kids as much as it's the circle, the people, right?
Right.
LSU can't mess this one up, else their state becomes much more vulnerable in the day and age of NIL. I mean, long gone are the days where every kid in Louisiana thinks they have to stay in Louisiana because of NIL. And that's why they have to – Scott Woodyard has to get this hire right because if he doesn't, all that's going to do is open up the state more than it has been in a long time.
That's what's, in the years I've been doing this, Jerry, and even going down to Louisiana a little bit, that's what's always stood out to me is the in-state pressure the Louisiana kids feel to go to LSU. It's not like Mississippi. You've still got Ole Miss and Mississippi State. In Alabama, you've got Alabama and Auburn. You've got one power conference school in the state, and that's LSU. And the in-state pressure, I mean, I've heard of kids situations where, hey, if you sign with another school other than LSU on Tuesday, your mom or dad may not have a job on Wednesday. Yeah. Like it's that kind of pressure. But Jerry, to your point, the fact that whether it's Texas or Texas A&M or Alabama's always recruited in the state of Louisiana, the fact that fortress may be showing some cracks, that's quite frankly, Jerry, that's something I never thought I'd see.
Yeah, and to be clear, 7 of the top 10 in the state are committed to LSU. So LSU still wins the majority of those battles, but yeah, I mean, the NIL changes the game, right? If somebody comes in and says, hey, $1 million a year and LSU can only do 600, you're not getting the kid. And so the game has changed a little bit in that state. And that's why, Jeff, it's so important, this hire for LSU, that they get it right from the standpoint of the way it's viewed by the LSU fans in the circle of these kids in the state. Because the one thing that can happen is if people lose confidence in the people that are hiring coaches at LSU,
Right.
If that, after Brian Kelly, if they make a hire that doesn't sit well in that state, I don't know about it. I don't know, CJ, at the times you've been through there, but LSU radio is unbelievable. Like it's no holds barred in that state. I mean, the call-in shows after they lose are some of those entertaining things I've ever listened to in my life. They take their football beyond serious, and they're not. The difference is in some states they'll speak out about it. They'll speak out publicly about it because there is just the one school that dominates that state. No offense to Tulane, but I think people know what I'm getting at. So if there's any cracks that LSU is not hiring the right person again, all bets are off in the state.
CJ, I'll give you the last word on the things in the boot before we move on.
Yeah, to y'all's point, they have to find a culture fit more than anything. Someone that is prideful in the L, right? I don't think Brian Kelly had that pride to encapsulate what it meant to be in Louisiana and recruit its state. That's a prideful state, and I talked about it for kids that are recruited by LSU. There are a lot of factors that go into committing and wanting to play at LSU, right? It's for your community, your neighborhood, right? It means more. And Jeff, your example, I mean, that's legitimate stuff. So leaving the state's not easy for top prospects, and especially given Brian Kelly's tenure and what's to come, this has to be one where LSU knocks it out of the park and finds someone that represents their state, their community, and what their fans believe in. Otherwise, hey, it might be open border season for Louisiana for the foreseeable future.
Gerry, when we look at the rest of the coaching carousel, the jobs that really concern Texas, I mean, with all due respect to Arkansas fans, I don't know that moves the needle all that much. Florida is open. Looking at the rest of Florida State's schedule, it looks like things aren't going to get any easier for Mike Norvell anytime soon. Florida State could be soon open. Gerry, what's on your radar as far as the rest of the coaching carousel as it could help Texas and Sark?
Yeah, Florida's because Kendall Gerville picked Texas, the defensive lineman out of Fort Myers, 4-star plus defensive lineman. I had him as a 4-star plus, but he did tear his ACL in the season opener, which tells you how much Kenny Baker, Sark, and those guys love him, that they're still recruiting him as if he's the healthiest guy on the field, right? And he's missed his senior year. That just tells you how much they love Kendall Gerville as a player. And I haven't been to Fort Myers. I think he's a dynamite kid and a really good fit in the college program. But Texas has remained on Kendall Gerville. And with the Florida job opening, I'll be a bit surprised if we don't see Gerville on campus in November at some point. I'm not saying it's a lock. This is recruiting. But the way this recruitment has gone and the feedback Texas has been getting for a while, I'll be surprised if he doesn't show up on campus. Obviously, the official visitor this weekend is Karan Maycock out of Miami Central. He's committed to Florida State. And Florida State's interesting. I mean, look, a lot of people think they'll fire Mike Norvell. Maybe they kick the can down the road a year because of all the other openings. I mean, there's some decisions that are going to have to be made here. How much money do you owe somebody? But then, and you want to make the move. Do you have the money to make the move? But then you look over there and say, well, LSU's open, Florida's open, and Penn State's open. So what does that look like? Because if you get caught in the coaching carousel, I mean, it's early signing periods, first week of December, in the portal, there's only one window now. So this is a little different, not having a spring portal window when you make a coaching change. But at Florida State, Karan Maycock, the linebacker from Miami Central, is making an official visit to Texas this weekend. He initially picked Florida State over Florida and Alabama, OV'd all three of those places plus Syracuse. And then UCLA is interesting because Texas has offered two guys that were committed to UCLA. Micah Smith, the 4-star offensive tackle out of Vero Beach, Florida. He already OV'd to Ohio State. I think he's an Ohio State lean despite still being committed to UCLA. Texas is trying to work out a date to get him on campus. We'll see. Vero Beach is one of the top teams in the state in their classification, expected to make a deep playoff run. So that may take him out of a November 22nd weekend OV for Arkansas, which is what Texas that's the weekend they've been planning all along as the big weekend. Then there's Teray Davis, the versatile defensive back out of Boulder Fairview. He is making an unofficial visit to Texas this weekend. He made an OV. He's a decommitted from UCLA now. Was a commitment to UCLA over Utah, K-State, and Oklahoma State back in July. He's making an unofficial visit to Texas this weekend after being at Washington last weekend. His father played at Colorado. He's a really talented playmaker that's having a great senior year there in the Boulder area at Fairview High. He will be coming in. So UCLA is the other school we're looking at right now. But I think we're mainly focused, again, like if Lane Kiffin takes a job, it probably wouldn't be till later in the cycle. So if there's anybody at Ole Miss that Texas might have an eye on as a senior, that probably wouldn't have a factor. So I think we're mainly looking at LSU, Florida, potentially Florida State. Texas going after an FSU linebacker commitment, and those two kids in UCLA right now. Nobody that on the Penn State commit list Texas was really after. They haven't offered any of those kids since James Franklin was fired. I think the attention is in the Southeast, plus those kids that were committed to UCLA.
CJ, whether it's circling back on Kendall Gerville or any of these new guys that have popped up on the radar, which of these recruits really stand out to you as you think it'd be a nice piece to add to this Texas class?
Oh, man, a nice piece, Jerry. I think I have to go back to Louisiana and that class at LSU. Richard Anderson, I got to see him in action, actually, in the spring. You know, he played against Destrehan in that little Jamboree spring game. To your point, unbelievable. To move the way that he does at 340 pounds is special. He can still dunk and do so very easily at that size. And Trenton Henderson, right? I think, of course, we've talked about him since his trip back to Austin in the summer, just watching him walk, right? You see the lean, you see the size, the athleticism in the frame, and then you turn on the tape, you say this is one of the more violent edge rushers in the country. Either of them really moves it for me because we've seen Texas in that front seven, specifically on that defensive line, win Texas football games. And I know it wasn't pretty this past weekend in Starkville, but guess what ended up helping you win that football game? It was your pass rush. It was your defensive line towards the back end. Having those stallions up front can go a long way, and you can never have enough of them. Texas, obviously, a very young bunch right now, but there's plenty of talent, and that's how you sustain success in this SEC is with guys up front that can create havoc plays in the backfield.
All right, Jerry, one more time, let everybody know about our good friend Mark Saunders.
Yeah. Are you in good hands with the over 35 years of experience that Texas alum Mark Saunders provides? You will be. That's why you should give him a call today, 512-218-8571. He can handle everything, all your insurance needs, Austin, around Rock area, the entire state of Texas. He is your guy. Everything from your home, car, and boat to your motorcycle, RV, and ATV. Call Texas Allstate agent Mark Saunders' office today, 512-218-8571. Again, he's just not a Texas Allstate agent that can handle all your needs. He's a Texas alum. All right, OTF members, give him a call, 512-218-8571.
Jerry, you've mentioned already Karan Maycock and Teray Davis, that visitor list for the Vanderbilt game. It's really unfortunate the way the schedule has worked in terms of what the staff can do in recruiting, because it'll be 42 days between home games and you're playing a top 10 Vanderbilt team. But in the state of Texas, you're right in the middle of district races. Other states are in the playoff races. They've already started the postseason. It's an 11 o'clock kick. Just not really ideal, Jerry, for the Texas staff to return home from a recruiting standpoint.
No, it's really not, unless you played a Thursday night high school football game. Or you're within driving distance. And there's a couple of guys coming in, obviously. There's a 2027. We'll let CJ talk about that, but coming in as well. But this is not the ideal game, but this has been the game Texas has had circled either, right? So they're kind of, if a guy can get in, they'll get him in. But that November 22nd game against Arkansas is the game they've had circled. That's where they had Braylon Hodge scheduled before he committed to Oregon. That's when I think they were looking at with Kendall Gerville and a couple of those other out-of-state guys. That's the game I think they've really had circled because, again, you don't know what's going to happen as far as the kickoff goes. But the 11 a.m. kick for Texas Vanderbilt here is not ideal because even if you get on an early morning flight, you know, by the time you get to Austin, by the time you get over to the Moncrief Newhouse, I mean, the team is coming from a hotel to Moncrief to the stadium, and they're very much in game mode. So it's not ideal for getting guys on campus for visits. That's why I think November 22nd, they've just circled that and said, whatever the start time is for that game, we're going to plan on this. Like I said, but they've got a couple of the top 26 targets remaining on campus this weekend because the schedule's worked out.
CJ, what stands out to you about this, at least early in the week edition of the visitor list for the Vanderbilt game?
Yeah, Amir Brown out of Rollsville, North Carolina, his 2027 running back will be on campus. We actually broke that news earlier this month. He was previously committed to North Carolina, reopened up his commitment, and very quickly set up a few visits, one to Notre Dame, in which he took already in the month of October, and now will be making his first visit over to Austin. So worth keeping an eye on there. And then another 27 prospect. This is an edge rusher out of Cornerstone Christian in San Antonio, 6'5", 220. Drake Carroll has offers from UTSA, Texas State, Duke, a guy worth keeping an eye on right now. Texas in 2027, Jerry, it's starting to look like it's going to have some guys at the edge position, and it's getting deeper and deeper by the week, essentially.
Yeah, so, some of the guys Texas offered, Jeff and CJ, like Peyton Miller, the center from Anna. He told me when I was up there, Texas OU week, that he was going to come to the Arkansas game and the A&M game. Well, that remains true. I'd still reached out this week to see if he was coming in. He said no, everything, plans remain the same. Tay Ellis, receiver at Crowley, who Texas really likes, not coming in this weekend. He'll probably be in for the Arkansas and A&M games. Same with Alvin Mosley, receiver from Crawford High. I think he's scheduled for Arkansas and A&M, assuming he's not in basketball after football or they're not still playing in football. But, Jeff, to your point, you're getting close to playoff time in Texas, and you are in the playoffs in some other areas around the country in high school football right now. So that is pretty much a big focus of these kids, and I think that's a big reason Texas has pushed off the November 22nd and made it their big weekend.
CJ, before we wrap up, I know you wanted to talk about Jaquan Snell. Anytime we're talking about prospects and underclass prospects on the state of Texas, his name always gets brought up. What's the latest with Jaquan Snell?
Yeah, this one might be actually headed out of state here soon. He's headed up to Ohio State this weekend. Ohio State actually sent down a safeties coach earlier last week who stuck around Waxahachie High for about 3 or 4 hours, talking with coaches up there. Obviously, he met with Jaquan. And look, this was originally a race that I envisioned being Texas and Texas A&M, and that still might be the case at the end of the day. But right now, there's a lot of smoke around the Buckeyes, and he might be looking to make a quick decision here in the next month or so, given how this upcoming weekend goes when he makes his trip to Columbus for the first time.
Jerry, whether you got hoops, football, whatever you got, you get the last word this week.
Yeah, hoops. Interesting you brought that up. Austin Gooseby, still, I think Texas over BYU and Duke, but we'll see where that goes here coming up. Cameron Williams, the 5-star, top 5 ranked, 6'11", skilled power forward out of Phoenix St. Mary's. Down the 3, Texas, Duke, and Arizona. Early on, we were hearing that Texas and Arizona may be the 2. Now we're hearing maybe Texas and Duke, and Arizona's 3rd. But we're not going to say that there's no chance he goes to Arizona. But the 2 top guys Texas still has on the board, they're either leading or right there for both of them. And with Bo Ogden already in the boat, that's about the best thing you can ask for Texas. And by the way, some people have asked, if they take a 4th high school kid in this class, this is the reminder that scholarships go to 15 in basketball now. If they take a 4th guy in this class, there's a kid from California, 6'4" guard that's going to visit. If they take a kid like that, it's a kid saying, I don't care about NIL. That's not what's important to me. I want to go play to a bigger program and take and bet on myself to develop. So if a kid commits to Texas in that scenario over some really good mid-majors, he's turning down an NIL deal from a mid-major and saying, I just want to go to a big program like Texas and try to develop. That's what Texas will do with their 14th and 15th scholarships. Finding those guys, easier said than done. And we'll see if that would be a 4th they take at the high school level if something like that worked out.
Interesting stuff. All right, Jerry, CJ, thank you guys for the knowledge and expertise as always. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes for producing it. Thank you to our friend Mark Saunders for sponsoring it. If you're not a member over at ontexasfootball.com, you can get over to the site right now and sign up using the promo code OTFOG, and then I'll get you 1 year of access at ontexasfootball.com for $39.95. Make sure that you like this video and that you're subscribed to the On Texas Football YouTube channel. That way, whether it's here on the channel or on the site, you're not missing any of our recruiting coverage all throughout the year. For Jerry, for CJ, for Matthew, for the entire On Texas Football staff, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And until next time, hook 'em.